How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Doing well.
Good.
I've got the results on mute over here, so I just wonder,
We are ready
watching the
when you
election.
are. Ready when you are.
All right, let's go. I'll call this meeting to order. This is the regular session of the Mayor and Council of the City of Bisbee, County of Cochise, and State of Arizona, to be held on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020 at 7 p.m. via Zoom. Ms. Coronado, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lewis Pollock.
Here.
Councilmember Joni Giacominno.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Higgins.
Here.
Mayor David M. Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Leslie Jones.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Joan Hanson.
Here.
Councilmember Anna Klein.
Here.
City staff, Teresa Coleman, City Manager, Ashley Coronado, City Clerk, Carrie Bagley, Finance Director, Joelle Landers, Personnel Director, Jesus Howard, Public Works Director, Jason Makoviak, Library Manager, James Ledbetter, City Attorney.
Thank you. For our invocation tonight, I'd like to have a moment of silence thinking about personal responsibility and hoping that we can help people in Bisbee continue with personal responsibility. The state of Arizona now has over a quarter of a million, has had over a quarter of a million cases of COVID-19 with over 6,000 deaths. We've had 1,700 cases overnight and 38 deaths, and personal responsibility is the key to eradication. So if you join me for just a minute of silence, contemplating that, thank you. Thank you. Under proclamations and announcements, first, item number 4 and number 5 are pulled. Item number 4 was taken care of last meeting, and the city clerk and myself had a minor communications gap. So that was my fault that it was on the agenda. Item number 5, as I indicated, is pulled. It was a non-action item to begin with. We have under item 5 and 6, we have 17 communications that have come in. I think most of us on the council received all of those. However, I would ask that the 17 be attached to the record for tonight. And pursuant to our charter 2.5.7 section B, in which it indicates that oral presentations shall not be repetitious and shall be confined to 3 minutes maximum duration. I'm going to indicate that we'll take, I believe we have 2 speakers on item 5 and 6. So we'll move those to item 6 and allow that, those 2 speakers. And like I said, we'll attach the remaining 17. And with that, do we have any regular call to the public?
I have a question.
Yes.
I still don't understand why you're not going to read them. They're not oral, they're written. And so people out in the public would like to hear them. They're attached to record. But why aren't we still reading the call to the public?
Because they're repetitious pursuant to the charter.
That's
And my Ms. Giacomino, that's my ruling.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Do we have any call to the public?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Landers?
This is from Eric Farner regarding old business item number 3.
Okay, then let's hold that to item number 3.
Okay.
Do we have anything that is not on the agenda?
No, sir. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll go to accounts payable. Do we have a motion for accounts payable?
I move that we pay accounts payable in the amount of $145,000 $571.21.
Thank you. And we're getting an echo. Are you around another speaker, ma'am?
No,
Computer speaker I'm talking about, no?
it's muted.
Okay, we'll give it a try. Everyone else is experiencing an echo, correct?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
We'll give it a try. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pollack. We have a motion and a second. Do we have questions?
I've got a
Ms.
couple.
Klein?
On page 1. Okay. She's trying to move her phone. There's travel for Miss Coleman. Where was the travel to?
That's listed on the receipt that, or the list that I submit to Yvonne. So we can pull those and send those to you.
Okay, I was just wondering where you had traveled to.
I go to meetings at the county. I go downtown. So it'll be, a number of smaller trips that add up over a month or two.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just one trip.
No.
Okay. And then on page 6, there is a charge for $1,198.21 to Cintas for nitrile gloves and leather gloves. That seems awfully high for gloves.
Yes, those are quite expensive, but that is the price for those gloves. Those gloves are the gloves that our sanitation department uses. For the most part, they are the majority user of those. That's why you see them in the, I believe those are in Public Works Administration. As we use those, we charge that cost to each different department. Again, the majority of those is our sanitation department, our wastewater collection department that uses those, but that is the price of those, and we've compared those with other retailers.
Okay, thank you. And then on the same page, there is a window tint in Casa Grande for $189. What is that?
Where is that?
On page 6?
Page 6. I'm having a hard time, but I think you said window tint. Yes, that was for a window tint for the new 3/4 ton pickup truck that we got.
Okay, why is it in Casa Grande?
Because we don't have a facility here in Bisbee, and that is a place that we can take that. So I took the vehicle to there to get it tinted.
There's nobody closer than Casa Grande?
But we'd have to do the same thing. We'd have to take it there during time where we didn't need the vehicle.
Okay.
Anything else?
Are you done?
Mr. Pollack?
No, I have nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Giacomino?
Yeah, I have a few questions. For starters, on page 4, your enterprise payment trust, is that monthly payments? Or how is that? Is that bi-monthly payments? It's under contract services on page 4.
That looks like a monthly payment.
Yeah.
So then we're going to be paying $4,000 a year for each vehicle, approximately.
Plus taxes and license, I believe.
Which comes to what?
I don't have those. I don't have those in front of me.
was my other one? Hold on. Oh, on page 7. Why is the water in Grassy Park $340? The bathrooms are closed.
Sure, no,
On page
the,
halfway down.
yeah, I see that, and I did review that bill. That bill is actually less than it was last year, approximately 10,000 gallons less than it was last year. So that's a reasonable use of our water.
So the bathrooms have been closed. What water has it been used on? It's winter time. You're watering Grassy Park.
Yes, we have to continue to water the park.
$300 a month worth. On page 11, there's a multitude of tools being bought again. Are tools disappearing, or what's the deal? Those seem to be regular tools that one would have. Are they replacements? Is there a way you inventory tools? Because it's under inventory tools.
We did set a procedure to do inventory tools. Those look like regular tools that we use. I mean, we need to replace screwdrivers. We need to replace utility knives. They don't last forever.
I didn't say they did. I just asked you too. Is there an inventory of those that are damaged and replaced, and you have your replacement categorized as to those that don't last forever?
Sure. Our inventory procedure is fairly recent, so those old tools are not inventoried.
So how do you keep track then of what you've lost and what you've damaged if they're not inventoried?
We will with these new ones that are in the inventory tool list. We will be able to do that.
Can you send me a copy of that inventory tool list?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. That's it.
Anybody else? All those in favor of paying accounts payable signify by stating aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Approval of consent agenda, items A through E. Approval of the minutes of the regular session of the Mayor and Council held on October 6, 2020 at 7 p.m. B, approval of the minutes of the regular session of the Mayor and Council held on October 20th, 2020 at 7 p.m. C, approval of the minutes of the work session of Mayor and Council held on October 19, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. D, approval of the resignation of Frank Davis from the Design Review Board. E, approval of the appointment of Scott Perfect to the Design Review Board. Does anybody on the council have any item they wish pulled for discussion? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda A through E. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Coronado.
Councilmember Pollack,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Aye.
Councilmember Higgins,
Aye.
Councilmember Johns,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hansen,
Aye.
Councilmember Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Smith.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Old business, item 3. Discussion of possible approval of the park facility and right-of-way use permit for the use of potential locations in downtown area City Park, Scenic View at Lavender Pit, including the Bisbee sign, and Vista Park on 2 days within November 15th to November 22nd to include the use of a drone. This was tabled from the last time, and further information has been received, and we do have a public comment. And so, Ms. Landers, would you mind reading that public comment, and then we'll continue.
Thank you. This is from Eric Farner. An application for a park facility and right-of-way permit was tabled at a previous council meeting because of concerns that Bisbee would be portrayed in a negative way. I have spoken with Joan Hansen and David Smith regarding this issue, and considering how much hard work they have put into the city council, they are entitled to a little bit more information from me than I provided over the phone. Question: can the city legally deny permits or otherwise restrict Laura Logan's filming on the basis of the content of her production subject matter? Example, because it could paint a bad picture of Bisbee. And the answer to that is clearly no. Content-based restrictions on protected speech activity are almost never permissible under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Content-based regulation is a restriction that distinguishes favored speech from disfavored speech on the basis of ideas or views expressed, while restrictions that confer benefits or impose those burdens on speech without reference to ideas or views expressed are, in most instances, content neutral. The U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly found that the principal inquiry in determining content neutrality is whether the government has adopted regulation of speech because of agreement or disagreement with the message it conveys. Citing Ward v. Rock against Racism, 1989, the government may not regulate speech based on hostility or favoritism towards the underlying message expressed. Thus, if the city of Bisbee were to reject the filming permit on grounds that it would paint a bad picture of Bisbee, the city will have done so on the basis of hostility towards the underlying message, and such content-based decision would be presumptively invalid. However reasonable, content-neutral time, place, and manner restrictions are permissible as long as they are narrowly tailored to serve a significant government interest, such as public safety. In other words, if somebody wants to film something in Bisbee, the purpose of the permitting process is to ensure things like public safety, minimal intrusion on public thoroughfares, adequate liability insurance, things of that nature. The content of the filming cannot be the basis of an issuance or denial of a permit. Thank you for your time, Eric Farner.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ledbetter, there was a legal request in there. Is there anything you wish to reply?
Well, no, generally speaking, content neutrality is an excellent goal, but with respect to this particular issue, we were tasked with looking at location, and with drones, there's some new interests that arise as to privacy as well, because you need to know the drone flight path, because drones flying over private residences, backyards, those type of things can be problematic as well. So generally, what we just heard is a good summary of what the law is with respect to city decision-making, but we've looked at everything from air paths, the city's airport, and privacy issues with respect to that as well. So I think it was a correct statement to say you should not base any decision that you make based upon the content, but there are a number of other legitimate concerns that the city did investigate.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I would indicate, because I discussed this and certainly in agreement with much of what Mr. Higgins said last time. I've done a little more checking, and a couple things. This is a bona fide news program that is continuing, and Ms. Logan is a well-respected broadcaster who actually, before she went with Fox News, was with CBS and was a broadcaster on 60 Minutes for some 7 years. We may remember she was the broadcaster that was gang raped in Egypt by a unruly group. So she comes with a lot of very good credentials as far as fairness and so forth. Having said that, as I indicated last time, we can't keep them out. With the explanations that they sent in to all of us to read, I'm satisfied with that personally. I don't have any further issues with that, but that's my say on it. Mr. Higgins, do you have something to follow up on?
Noel and Eric made good points, and the last thing I want to do is shut down free speech. However, I have not been convinced by their second letter, and I'm glad that I think we should take a vote.
Okay. Anybody else? Do we have a motion? I'll move that we approve the park facility right-of-way use permit for the use of downtown area city park scenic view at Lavender Pit, including the Bisbee sign and Vista Park on the 2 days within November 15th to the 22nd, to include the use of a drone. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollack,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Nay.
Councilmember Higgins,
Nay.
Councilmember Johns,
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Hansen,
Nay.
Councilmember Klein,
Nay.
Mayor Smith.
Aye. Motion is defeated 5-2. Number 6, discussion and possible approval of professional service agreement for the shared use path feasibility study with Kimberly Horn. Ms. Coleman, do you have anything to say before we have Ms. Landers or the speakers speak?
Well, I can just do an overview of the selection process, perhaps.
Yes, ma'am.
So there were 3 firms that responded to the RFP. The RFPs were reviewed by Jackie Watkins, Christine McLaughlin, and myself. Christine and Jackie both having professional experience with planning, and Jackie actually indicated she had previously worked with all 3 firms. Based on the scoring, there were 2 firms that were definitely ahead of the third. I did not interview the third firm. I interviewed Rick and Kimberly Horn, and then followed up with Christine, and our decision based on Kimberly Horn's experience with pathways and pathway planning was to go with them for the feasibility study.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Landers?
Thank you, sir. Bisbee Bikeways from Etta Kravalek to the council. Please include the letter from Bisbee Bikeways that addresses agenda item 6, feasibility study. Please include Bisbee Bikeways in developing, reviewing, and drafting the final master plan for Bisbee. They have done a considerable amount of research, grant development work, and concept development for bikeways that could inform the city's master plan in important new ways. In addition, Bisbee Bikeways will be a valuable stakeholder in the feasibility study for the Lavender Pit. Thank you, Etta Kravalek. And we have had, 17 letters to support Bisbee Bikeways as a valuable stakeholder in the feasibility study for the Lavender Pit.
Thank you, ma'am. And Ms. Coronado, are the speakers ready? Do we know?
Yes, we have Sarah Megason. I'll go ahead and get her.
Welcome, Ms. Megason.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. It's been a long time since I've addressed you all. It's a little weird to be virtual. My name is Sarah Megason. I am a former resident of Bisbee. I lived there from 2007 to 2013. I sat on the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the Sustainability Commission. And I did a lot of work with the community development department when we still had an active community development department in the city. I'm currently a planner with the city of Tucson, and I live in Tucson, and I also sit on the board of Bisbee Bikeways. I want to ask if the Kimley Horn proposal could be made available for the public to review, and also why Bisbee Bikeways wasn't included in the selection of the consultant. In the agenda, the only thing that was included as an attachment was the contract and the schedule, which looked like it was taken out of the proposal, but not the entire proposal itself. Since Bisbee Bikeways wrote a big portion, or pretty much all of the USDA grant, which the city of Bisbee was rewarded, it seems as though the nonprofit should have been involved with the selection process of the consultant, or at least included in seeing the proposals. It is unclear in the contract and the schedule who the stakeholders are, and we would like to make sure that Bisbee Bikeways is named as a stakeholder in the feasibility study. TAC is called out in the schedule to have meetings with the consultant throughout each of the tasks, including stakeholders in quotes, but it is unclear what this acronym stands for, which is why seeing the proposal would be beneficial. I would also request that the feasibility study works in conjunction with the Bisbee Area Mobility Master Plan. I assisted with developing the scope of work for the BAMMP, and it was key in that scope of work that the feasibility study and the Bisbee Area Mobility Master Plan were developed together so as to create a clear path forward for safe multimodal transportation infrastructure to be developed in and around Bisbee. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with you guys more on a lot of these projects.
Thank you, Ms. Nicholson. Mr. Pollack, sir, you had a motion, as I recall, that Bisbee Bikeways was to be listed as a stakeholder. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So they are in fact a stakeholder.
And I would just add to that and ask Ms. Coleman to reassure them verbally that they are still a part of the process.
They are listed. They were listed in the RFP as per the council's motion that you initiated.
Thank you.
Yes. Question, Ms. Giacomino?
If that's the case, then why aren't they listed in this as one of the stakeholders? My understanding is stakeholders are, people within our community. We are the stakeholders, and they're pretty representative of that. So since they were listed on the RFP, why are they not listed within this as a stakeholder?
I'm sorry, listed on the project.
On any of the, yeah, on the project thing.
It does list stakeholders, and they were part of the motion that you seconded. Yeah.
Right, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
One at a time, Ms. Giacomino.
Yeah. You have TAC listed after stakeholders /TAC, but you do not have Bisbee Bikeways listed.
Well, I also don't have the city of Bisbee listed. I don't have Cochise County listed. I don't have Sun Corridor listed. Those are all, I don't have ADOT listed or FMI, and those were all stakeholders that were included in the RFP.
So why don't you have them listed?
This was the response, and they had a limited number of pages to respond. There was no reason for them to list all of the stakeholders on their project schedule.
So then they have to go just on your verbal.
Actually, they have a copy of the RFP they responded to. Yes, exactly. Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Mayor, excuse me, we also have Stephanie Peavy.
Yes. Is Ms. Peavy ready?
I will. Hi, Stephanie, are you available?
You're muted there, Ms. Peavy. There you
Mayor,
are.
Can you hear me?
You are. Okay.
Mayor, Council, I believe Sarah adequately covered the same points I was going to address.
Okay.
So I think it would be redundant for me to read this letter.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. Anybody else?
I do have another question.
Let's have a motion and then we can take questions, okay? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the professional services agreement for the shared use path feasibility study with Kimley Horn.
I second.
Now, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Under discussion, Ms. Giacomino?
Why were we not provided with the process, as in how you decided who to choose?
I didn't understand how.
Okay,
how-
so they chose this specific consultant, and what was the process in which they used to determine that they were more valuable than the other one? Was
right.
there
So there were criteria listed in the RFP,
mm-hmm.
so that each firm that responded was aware of the scoring criteria, and then the scoring criteria was applied to the actual, like reading through the RFP and then going through each of the criteria to assign a point value.
So why weren't we provided with that in
We're not-
comparison? I was just curious.
Well,
We're not typically.
a recommendation based on the scoring and the interviews. So this is a recommendation based on the staff work.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Nay.
Councilmember Higgins,
Nay.
Councilmember Johns. Was that a nay? I'm sorry.
We didn't get it.
Oh, no, it was an aye.
Aye. Okay, I'm sorry. Mayor Pro Tem Hansen,
Aye.
Councilmember Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-2. Item 7. Discussion of possible approval for the request for proposal for a historic building structure report for the Copper Queen Library. Mr. Madigan, nice to hear from you, sir.
Yeah, nice to be here, Mayor and Council. So yeah, we've put together an RFP for the structural report, and again, this is for the grant that we got for the State Historic Preservation Office for $20,000, and then the city pitching in $13,334. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to.
What's your cat's name?
Farmer.
Okay. That was my only question, sir. Any questions? Do we have?
No,
Mr.
I'm sorry. I
Pollock?
do.
Okay, just a second. A minute. I saw
Yeah.
Mr. Pollock first.
I don't see myself. That's why.
Yeah, you're not
That's
there.
weird. Okay, there I am.
There you go. Mr. Pollock.
In the body, it says that the city of Bisbee will contribute $13,334. On fiscal impact, it says NA. Is that a contradiction, or you are putting out $13,334, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's, so shouldn't that be listed under fiscal impact?
We listed the fiscal impact when the grant was accepted. So this is not an additional impact.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a pass-through. Right. Okay. Anybody? Yes, Mr. Giacomino, I'm sorry.
So I thought Old Bisbee was considered a historic. How did it miss out on becoming classified as an historic, or is this just updating its status? I'm not against it. I'm just curious how it was never.
No, this has nothing to do with status. This is the structure itself. This is an assessment of the building to find out what needs to be done to preserve it.
Okay, okay. That clarifies. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
I move to approve the request for proposal for a historic building structure report for the common list.
I second.
All those in favor of approval of an RFP signify by stating aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
No. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Item 8, discussion of possible approval of a park facility and right-of-way use permit from Crisis Response Network to set up a mobile clinic services in Vista Park 1 day a week from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. through August 2021. Ms. Coleman?
Yes, so I understand that this had been set up perhaps in an old Bisbee location in the past, and they've chosen Vista Park because it will allow them more space to physically distance, but providing the same service that they provided previously.
Yeah, there's certainly a big difference in parking. Any questions? Ms. Giacomino?
The charge, the $35, is that just a one-time fee, or is that, what is that in reference to? The fiscal impact, it says 35 plus any additional staff.
That's generally what we would charge for trash and access to restrooms and that kind of thing.
Okay, so they're paying it, or we're
That
paying
is
it?
a good question. I think perhaps.
It's paid by the applicant.
Mr. Harrow, do you have
This is the
answer?
big blue bus, right?
Yeah, so that $35 is the administrative fee for that permit. If they
Okay.
require any additional water usage, electric usage, those types of things, those are an additional
Oh, thank you.
that is on the permit.
Okay, so it's a permit fee technically. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Anything else? Ms. Johns?
Yeah, I was just, if I remember correctly, we did this a couple of years ago up in the Gulch, and we didn't have a really great turnout for that. And people were kind of distrustful of the bus, and it ended up not finishing out their contract. Am I right about that? They went away early
No.
or? Okay.
No, actually they didn't. They, I believe, occupied the city space underneath the park because it allowed people to, underneath City Park, it allowed people to walk in without being noticed by a van sitting there.
Okay. Okay. But what were people using this when we offered this service before?
Yes.
Okay.
It,
All right,
it,
that's
it grew as time evolved. Yes.
okay, because I'm just wondering if we get into this situation again, if there's anything we plan to do to kind of promote this service.
Yeah, we were actually allowing them all the promotion on it.
Okay.
And so, yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Ms. Hanson?
This isn't the same service, though, that was up in the Gulch.
Right, she was talking about Chiricahua.
Yeah.
Right.
I just wanted to make that point, that it's not the same people.
Fair. Right, Ms. Johns, I wasn't trying to mislead you. The ones in the Gulch was Chiricahua, and this is a different service, but along the
Well,
same lines.
Yeah, I knew, but I figured it was a similar service, and I'm just concerned about whether or not people are going to utilize it.
You bet. Ms. Giacomino? Okay.
I was just moving my phone, sorry.
Okay, all right. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the park facility and right-of-way use permit from Crisis Response Network to set up mobile clinic services in Vista Park 1 day a week from 9 to 1 p.m. through August 2021.
Second.
All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Item number 9, discussion and possible approval of Resolution R 2025, establishing a workforce affordable housing initiative within the Huachuca Terrace neighborhood. Ms. Landers, you have a comment.
Yes, sir. I have 2. Bisbee Workforce Housing Initiative from Emily Kerr, Mayor and Council. According to the U.S. Census website, 22.9% of Bisbee's population lives under the poverty threshold. Under the proposed Bisbee Workforce Housing Initiative, only police officers, firefighters, EMS personnel, and teachers would be eligible to take advantage of the so-called low-income housing the city plans to provide. The average police officer's pay per year in Bisbee is over $35,000. The average firefighter's pay is over $38,000. The average EMT makes over $34,000. And the average teacher's salary is over $36,000. All these numbers are from Indeed.com. These are all important people in our community who deserve to be paid more, but the percentage of our little town's population living at or below the poverty line bears repeating. It is a whopping 22.9%, more than twice the national average of 10.5%. So let's look at some real examples of low income. The average bartender, server, cook, cleaner, or retail worker in Bisbee makes $12 per hour, which, assuming a 40-hour work week, 52 weeks a year, which is rarely if ever the case, which is why many people in Bisbee have 2 or more part-time jobs, equals a yearly income of under $25,000. Because Bisbee relies on tourism to support these jobs, and because tourism ebbs and flows, especially this year, there is a large segment of Bisbee's population who makes half or less what the cops, firefighters, EMTs, and teachers here make annually. I think low-income housing is a wonderful thing when implemented correctly, and it could help a struggling town like ours rise up. However, limiting the pool of eligible residents to those of middle-class income defeats the purpose of low-income housing entirely. I would like to see this initiative rewritten to include the true low-income Bisbee residents. Thank you, Emily Kerr, Ward 1.
Thank you.
Affordable Housing Initiatives from Lori McKenna. I am writing about my concern regarding agenda items 9 and 10, both affordable housing initiatives. I assume some of the planning documents over the past year or so are in past minutes, but it is not at all transparent at this point to vote upon. I do know that Step Up Bisbee is involved to do rehab of houses that are perhaps seized by the city for lack of payments on city services. But the idea that this affordable housing is only made available for target workforce, teachers, nurses, police, firefighters, and other first responders has me concerned. How is this equitable to the community at large? Service workers, hospitality workers, and working artists also need affordable housing. I also don't understand how these target buyers can come up with the down payments for said purchases if their income is low. Housing lotteries are usually partnered with federal or state housing authorities to procure down payments for the recipients of housing aid. Who pays the taxes and upkeep if you can't find the buyers? Who holds the deed after the rehab? The City of Bisbee and Step Up Bisbee have never been real estate brokers before, and I think the City Council should proceed with extreme caution on these initiatives. I am not a resident of Bisbee, but I work here for an arts nonprofit and do most of my shopping locally. I care deeply about this community. I think the city manager really needs to slow this down and work with state or federal housing to reach well-intentioned, much-needed affordable housing goals. Sincerely, Lori McKenna.
Thank you, Ms. Landers. Do we have a motion, and then we'll discuss this?
I move to approve resolution R-20-25 establishing a workforce affordable housing initiative within the Huachuca Terrace neighborhood.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and we have a second. Discussion. Ms. Johns.
Hello. I just wanted to speak to this because this is kind of my pet project. We've been working on affordable housing for a long time, and I feel like there has been a lot of confusion and speculation about what we're trying to do here. And so as much as I want to see this move forward, I think it might be a good idea for us to have a work session and, you know, kind of try and explain to the public that this is the beginning of a program. It's going to evolve. This is not the only iron in the fire we have, you know, as far as affordable housing goes. And I just would like to try and, you know, bring some clarity to the egregious speculation that's going on right now about this project. And I don't know if any of you agree with me about that, but I think we maybe need to talk about this in public.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Higgins?
I agree with Leslie. Every word she said.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pollack?
I also agree with Ms. John's statements. I also would like to ask our legal counsel to answer the concern about targeting clients for these homes versus opening up the availability of these loans to anyone who would be interested in them. They all have to qualify. Why do we want to exclude anyone in the community? And that's
I maybe, can I try first?
Yes, sir. Just a moment. I think you have the answer.
Yeah, thank you. So as you may recall, about the time that I started with the city, there was interest in kind of a range of housing to be built all together near Safeway. And as I started having community conversations, it turned out that there were groups with a variety of interests that did not necessarily like all fit on the same parcel necessarily. So as conversations took place and groups were formed, there were 3 groups that have remained active. One is the co-housing group, and I have another Zoom call with them next week on Monday to talk about what city property is available for co-housing. That's one group, and that's one initiative. With the county and the city and Compass Affordable Housing, there's affordable apartment complex conversation. That seems to be a very good fit for the parcel by Safeway, and that's another housing initiative. As we were having conversations with Habitat for Humanity about building housing, the folks from Step Up Bisbee Naco indicated their interest, but when they heard that Habitat would require us to fundraise $165,000 per house for every house, that was not a sustainable model. The folks from Step Up Bisbee Naco stepped forward, and they we entered into a memorandum of understanding with them specifically to rehabilitate workforce housing for a specific population. That's another initiative. So this is just one of 3 initiatives that are currently moving forward. That doesn't mean that if there are folks who are servers and cooks who want to start their own initiative, that they're excluded. They're not. I would be happy to support their efforts. But because we have that MOU with Step Up Bisbee NACO, and they have actually raised the money and done the work on this first house in Huachuca Terrace, we would need to honor our agreement with them that these homes are workforce homes for the target audience that we agreed to make them available to.
I appreciate that, Ms. Coleman. I think that information is exactly the kind of information that Ms. Johns is talking about, that we should get out to the public so there's a lot less of this speculation and hysteria that seems to gin up every time one of these issues comes before us. I'd also like to still ask the question, and from our legal counsel, is what you just outlined in honoring the agreement between Step Up Bisbee and the City of Bisbee, is that a legally acceptable contract?
Yes, targeted initiatives are permissible.
Thank you. Oh, and my last point for Ms. Coleman, could you explain the 5-year forgivable note clause in the resolution, please? That
absolutely. And I think we're all recognizing that property values are rising very quickly. So when we purchased this home on Fort Huachuca, we were thinking, oh, this is a home that'll sell for about $90,000. And based on the incomes of our firefighters, police officers, and teachers, those are homes that they would be able to qualify for a mortgage for. But our real estate agent who helped us purchase the home is now telling us that the value of that home is somewhere between $115,000 and $125,000. So I did a little math. I think some of you saw my response to Emily around a sales price. Because interest rates are also getting lower, it increases the buying power of our constituents. So if we price that house at 106, but it appraises for 125, we want to hold that difference in a note that incentivizes our police, fire, and teachers to stay in the home for 5 years. After the 5 years, the note would be forgivable and that home equity would become theirs. But in the interim, it will remain with the program. So if they sell the house in a year, actually the difference would come back in and make the housing program more sustainable.
Thank you.
Right. The bottom line, Ms. Coleman, with that is that takes away the potential of somebody just getting in there and flipping it.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
Or if they did that, we would get the money.
Exactly. They wouldn't, we would. That was my point. You bet. You bet. Ms. Giacomino. Sorry,
I guess my concern is, it talked about being affordable housing. They're going to have to come up with $20,000 down. And we're talking about a group of people, I being in that at one time, a young teacher or beginning teacher. You don't have $20,000. So how is that going to be affordable? And I remember back in one of the prior meetings talking about assistance. They can qualify, but if you go to get the house, how are they going to be able to come up with that kind of a chunk of change?
So the interest form that they fill out to indicate their interest in the house does ask them to list what their source of funds will be. For example, an interest form that I have refers to a gift. We also talked with the folks from Washington Federal, and folks who have really good credit could qualify to purchase a home with 10% down. So 20% is not a hard and fast number. They'll pay a little more on their interest rate with a lower down payment, and they'll have to have a much better credit score to make a lower down payment, but those are possibilities. The other programs still exist, and we did talk about that at our home buyer education program on October 23rd. We had 4 interested folks attend that workshop, and one of them has submitted their letter of intent to participate in the program.
Mr. Pollack, did you have another question? I'm sorry, sir.
No, I did not. Thank you.
Great. Ms. Hanson, or Mayor Pro Tem Hanson.
So the other two initiatives that you mentioned, are those targeting lower affordable houses that would be offered to people with lower incomes, low income housing?
Right. So Leslie might have to help me out on this with the affordable housing project. It is an apartment project, and it will be mixed income, but as I understand, a certain number of the units will be available on a scale. Is that correct, Leslie?
Yes, that's true. It's in mixed use facilities like that. Studies have shown that it's beneficial to everybody. Higher.
You muted yourself.
Leslie, you muted yourself.
All right, that's better. Sorry, where did you go? I was just saying that studies have shown that it's better for everyone when higher and lower income people are able to live in the same space. And so that's the goal with the apartment complex. And one thing I want to throw in there, because this gets bandied about a lot, is that we are not trying to relegate low income people to San Jose and keep them out of town. It's very complicated to get these complexes built. You have to go through a process with low-income housing tax credits. There's like a 600-page application that you have to fill out to go to the state. And one of the biggest, the only criteria they have anymore for building these apartment complexes, it used to be you have to be on a bus line, you have to be near within 2 miles of a 24-hour medical facility. But now the only thing the state cares about at this point is the proximity to a grocery store. So it's going to be almost impossible to get this funded if it's not near Safeway. That is the reason for building the complexes in San Jose. And we already have 3 of them out there. So this would be a 4th one. We haven't had one built in 20 years. And it's very complicated, but we've been working on this for a while, and we're going to apply next year. So I don't know if I totally went overboard answering.
No, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I can just say that the co-housing group is hoping to make living more affordable for the interested residents, and that they can combine, not everybody needs I'm going to say lawnmower, but that's because I'm from the Midwest. But you know what I mean? It's like you combine your resources, and in that way lower the cost of housing for everyone who participates in the co-housing process.
So we actually have 3 different initiatives that are going on at the same time. And,
yes.
And it covers a spectrum of income.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I think that explanation helps a lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Johns.
And I also wanted to ask if I'm correct about this, Teresa. I think I remember in the city manager's report a few meetings ago, you were talking about this and saying that, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, the program is eventually going to expand beyond police, firefighters, teachers, what we have right now. This is just a start.
Yes, this is the current agreement that we have. If we find that we have more properties, if we find that we have more demand, if we find that police, firefighters, and teachers actually can find and purchase homes on their own using other programs like USDA or Teacher Next Door, and don't need the homes that are being rehabbed necessarily, then yes, we will look at expanding the outreach to make these homes available.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Johnson. Your expertise in this area is much appreciated.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we do have a motion. Ms. Coronado?
Member Pollack,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino.
Can you clarify the motion?
Yes. Councilmember Pollock moved to approve Resolution R 2025, establishing a workforce affordable housing initiative within the Huachuca Terrace neighborhood.
So it's not a work session to discuss it.
That wasn't the motion on the table.
That's correct.
Then no, nay.
And I think the motion, excuse me, I think the motion was made by Ms. Johns and seconded by
I'm
Mr.
sorry, you're correct. You are absolutely right. I mixed up my lines. Councilmember Higgins.
Nay.
Councilmember Johns.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hansen. Aye. Councilmember Klein.
Aye.
Mayor Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-2. Item 9, not 10. They just look sort of alike. Discussion and possible approval of Resolution R 2026, establishing a workforce affordable housing initiative within the Saginaw neighborhood. Ms. Coleman, is there anything to
Well,
add?
I can add that the city does currently own 2 lots. One of them has a vacant house on it and was donated to the city by the Family Trust. And the other, oddly enough, is a lot very close to, I think it's C Street and the highway that actually has belonged to the city. So we have a couple of parcels, and there's the possibility to work with Step Up Espinaco to develop housing on those 2 properties.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have a motion, please?
I move to approve Resolution R-20-26, establishing a workforce affordable housing initiative within the Saginaw neighborhood.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. Discussion? Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock.
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino.
Nay.
Councilmember Higgins.
Nay.
Councilmember Johns.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Klein.
Aye.
Mayor Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-2. Item 11, discussion of possible approval of the real estate lease between Freeport-McMoRan and the city of Bisbee for the property located at 76 Erie Street to be used as Bisbee City Hall. Ms. Landers, you have a letter.
Yes, sir, from Margot McCartney. I am writing to request that mayor and council postpone any move of City Hall to the building in the Lowell or any other location at this time. We, the citizens for whom you work, would like you to provide more information concerning the need for such a move. Any move is expensive, disruptive, and a tremendous burden on those whose jobs are moving. City Hall has already moved twice since the fire. I would like to see a city council meeting with a qualified electrician describing all options available to safely use the Tawburyville building, along with the costs involved for those options. It seems another useless expense for the citizens of Bisbee to bear. In addition, the proposed move to Lowell would be into a building that was rejected as insufficient in July of last year. Obviously, that building would still need upgrades for computers, etc., hence more expenses. Our city manager earns 3 times what anyone who lives here earns, and I'm not criticizing that. From my point of view, having a woman in that position is refreshing, but she should not spend money without being accountable to us. Money just flies out the door. As I pointed out last week, our city attorney, Britt Hansen, was fired because he was too expensive at $60,000 annually. So you hired a private attorney for $120,000 a year. Now you want to hire a private organization to take care of stray animals. It will certainly involve an annual contract, which you ditched by insisting Friends of the Bisbee Animal Shelter operate on a month-to-month basis. No organization can do that. Please leave the issue of moving for the newly elected mayor and council. It will give us, the citizens of Bisbee, an opportunity to judge our votes. Thank you, Margot McCartney.
Thank you, ma'am.
I move to approve the real estate lease between Freeport McMoran and the city of Bisbee for the property located at 76 Erie Street to be used as Bisbee City Hall.
I second.
Do we have a motion and a second discussion? Ms. Giacomino.
Oh, I have a lot of discussion. For starters, the taxes have been lowered and been put into, I believe, what's called, what is it called? The status of the taxes now. It's a nonprofit or something along that lines. Once we start renting the place or leasing the place, the taxes are going to go back to commercial real estate, which is $6,000 a year. The utilities that were utilized when Soils was in there, the high was $853 for electricity and the low was $294, and that doesn't seem to be included in here. Natural gas ran as high as $396 a month in the high months, and it went down obviously in the summer. My concern is, the first year, yay, it's $1, but the costs are going to go up, and they're going to go up substantially, and that has not been included in here. And floor space, it's going to take a lot to break down those rooms in there in order to accommodate City Hall. Are you planning on moving everybody over or just a portion of City Hall? Also, why hasn't APS been brought in to find out exactly what the surge has been, the surge loads that are causing the brownout? Have you gotten 3 proposals as to what it would cost, or did you just go with one person's opinion, one electrician? So those are my questions and statements.
Ms. Ledbetter, did you want to answer the question about taxes, sir?
Yeah, on the tax issue, obviously the taxes cannot, under the state equalization program, the existing property tax rate, and I assume that's what Councilmember Giacomino is referring to, can only be increased by 5% per annum, and that's according to the State Equalization Board. Currently, the assessed value, I believe, is $54,000 and change. Ms. Coleman can correct me on that. So you wouldn't anticipate over a 5-year period a significant tax rate increase. It doesn't just jump like that. Under the state equalization formulas that went into place a few years ago. So that should address itself and take care of itself. And frequently, and again, there's no guarantee that this will occur, but frequently what happens is a public entity can request and receive waivers relative to property tax assessments that are assessed by a county. So that's an entirely strong possibility that could occur in this instance. So that's the particular issue. Now, with respect to utilities and projected utility costs, under commercial real estate agreements, those are almost always the responsibility of the tenant, and here they are the tenant's responsibility. So you wouldn't include those as calculations inside of a commercial lease because they are variable, and and what's in this lease is just the obligation to pay those by the city.
I wasn't referring to having it in the lease, but it should have been on the side. My question about the taxes is they had the status changed, and that's why it's at $1,700 a year. So what's to say that status isn't going to change back because it's now becoming a commercial rental when they rent it to the municipality?
I did call the county assessor's office to clarify what the difference in the taxes were between the previous year and the current year. And I was informed that Freeport McMoran had successfully petitioned for a reduction in the value of the property. The property value went from about $260-some thousand to, I believe the combined land and building is now $67,700, I think is what Carrie and I talked about. So it wasn't that they changed the status or designation of the property. They actually successfully petitioned to lower the value, the assessed value of the property.
When you look it up on the state rolls, it is using two different terminologies. It's taking it from one to another.
Well,
So,
I think the terminologies might be the limited property value and the full cash value. And those appear on all property tax assessments. And on the annual, the limited cash value can never exceed the full cash value in the calculation from the assessor's office. And it's that limited cash value, the LCV number, that you see on assessments that by state equalization can only adjust at 5% annually on an increase.
So I guess my other question still hasn't been answered as far as who's moving because of the space. It's going to take a lot more if everybody's going to that building. They're just big rooms and an unfinished basement, which when they were first offered this, when the City Hall burnt down, it wasn't appealing enough. And now that you're proposing to take this property, how are they going to put everybody in there? Because there's only, probably 4 or 5 big rooms. And there's more than that office space wise. So
Yeah,
where's that
so
cost?
So Ashley and I actually have mapped out the floor space, and we've been there 2 or 3 times, maybe. So we have mapped out the floor space. The finance department does currently have cubicles. They're just spread around the room. They can be repositioned in any way. That would be the bigger space as you come right in. It also has more access for electricity and computer hookups in that main room, in the big room. Then there was a room that was a reception room at one time, and I have already obtained permission to remove the big reception desk that takes up the bulk of that space, and that space would become Public Works. And then there is office space for Personnel Director, Finance Director, Public Works Director. Jim and Joe would continue to share a space. There's a space for Ashley, a space for myself. Joelle has her eye on a space I'm not quite sure about. She's going to be able to work out. And then we've identified that Nina would be a cubicle kind of between Ashley and myself. There's a break room and there are 2 restrooms. And then the storage downstairs doesn't need to be finished in any way. Once Ashley and Nina are able to label that and determine which files they want where, we can start to move files. So we also don't have to move everything all at once. We can get ourselves situated and then we can come back for the records and move those in.
I'm looking at the floor plan. I have a copy of the floor plan.
Yeah.
So I know what it, and I've been there myself for other reasons.
Right.
I still am concerned about the cost and that it's not, you don't have a specific cost labeled out. How much is it going to cost to remove that whole big desk that is affixed to the floor? You know, how much is it going to cost to separate the rooms? You say you have cubicles, but there's still moving costs and other structural costs that you're going to have to.
Right.
I mean, I just think
not
maybe
structural
it needs
costs. We don't have any plan for structural costs. Ashley would like to salvage the door, the new door that we put in over at the county building, and I did discuss that. Sorry, Jesus, I already discussed that with Javier, so we've talked a little bit about that. And then I think Ashley actually does have some figures from the last time we moved, not we, because I wasn't there, from the last time the city moved, that gives us an idea of what some of our costs will be.
I think when we discussed this 2 meetings ago, I think it was anywhere from about 3 to 5,000, or it might have been 5 to 7. I cannot remember. I'd have to pull the old meeting.
Okay.
I'm thinking it was closer to 5,000, and that would include IT coming down on site, helping everybody move and set up, and that would also include having assistants to move with the Verhouse gentleman just helping actually move the stuff.
Yeah, if I might, I had put those figures out for the original proposal, and it was a high of 7 and believed to probably be 5. The utility costs that I put out were taking the highs and the lows and averaging those. That's where those figures came up, versus the utility costs for only the admin at our current location. So if we take the other buildings, which included Public Works, and we added that additional into our present utility costs, then the new building probably becomes less money in utility costs than we're currently paying right now. Mr. Pollock.
One question for Mr. Ledbetter, and then I'd like to address Ms. Coleman. Jim, the 5-year lease for the soils building, can we spend city funds on limited improvement to that building, given the fact that we don't own it, would not own it?
Yeah, you would need to go through, Councilmember Pollock, the appropriate processes, depending on the hiring and whom's going to be hired. But yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Coleman, we on the council tend to forget that the city is run by you and your staff, and you get little thanks for that, either publicly and sometimes not even privately. With that in mind, I'd like to ask you a few questions. Do you and your staff prefer this soils building to the existing location that you work out of?
I'm going to speak for the others, and Ashley can chime in, but overwhelmingly folks are very excited about the move.
Can you and your staff live with the existing floor plan? And I'm talking structurally, without moving walls, without doing any major demolition of the structure?
Yes.
Has the roof of the building been inspected for integrity?
Joe was in the building. I know that Matt had a question about a beam of support, and I asked him to share his concern with Joe. From what we went up into the attic and took a look at the roof from underneath anyway, it was dry and Joe was satisfied.
I might add that Joe told me that he did walk the roof, and that I believe he said it was elastomeric, as I recall, and that it was in good shape.
Thank you.
I heard the figure of $67,700 is the assessed value for the building, fair market value?
That includes the building and the land. I think I added the two together when I was talking with Carrie. Yeah.
And this question would be for the mayor. Has Freeport-McMoRan expressed any interest in selling the city this building?
Actually, I can answer that because I asked that the lease agreement include an option to purchase, and FMI respectfully declined to include that in the lease agreement.
Yeah, originally, Mr. Pollock, originally they indicated that they were very interested in that. They do have a new CEO who has indicated that properties will no longer be given away, that they'll only be sold. And so they're unable to make any promises that way at this particular point. But I believe that Ms. Coleman would also agree that they didn't put that in the lease, but that is still an open possibility.
That's what I wanted to hear. It is still on the table, could be on the table.
You're right. You're right. I will continue to pursue an opportunity. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yes, sir, please.
In further answer to your questions, Mr. Pollock, maintaining the roof is the responsibility of the landlord, Freeport-McMoRan, and maintaining integrity of the structures, the foundations, exterior walls. We did shift that responsibility to Freeport.
They will honor that. Okay, that's good to know.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, now I want to summarize some things for you, Ms. Coleman, that I understand to be true, and I just want to confirm them with you. You already have enough furniture to furnish this facility, is that correct?
More than enough, probably.
So there will be no furniture expense, correct?
Right. Well, I purchased a few things myself.
Okay.
Correct.
Have you come up with any kind of thumbnail estimate on what minor remodeling would cost?
So to replace flooring, for example.
Well, let's say you wanted to put up a suspended ceiling or some floor covering.
Oh yeah, we're not there. If we were going to do a suspended ceiling, we would come back to council and talk about that. But yeah, we're not planning on that right now.
And this is my last question for you.
Okay.
There's a $1 for the first year. Can we get an option included in there? After being in the building for a year, you'll know better what your costs are and you'll know better whether or not it's a solution. Can we have an option to then exercise the next 4 years at fair market value or possibly negotiate a purchase price on that building? Can that be included in your 5-year lease proposal?
Well, they did not want to include though I asked, they would not include the option to purchase in the lease agreement.
But that's still an open.
Right. We can certainly continue to talk about it. Yes. And then they indicate in the lease that they're making kind of a comparison between what they're asking for a security deposit and what they anticipate that the monthly rent will be. So from what I read, I anticipate we would be looking at about $1,000 a month. And then we can certainly talk about, is that fair market value or not when we get to that point.
Okay, I want to thank you for answering all my questions. And now I'd just like to make a statement, and I'm directing it to you and your staff. I appreciate what you do for the city. The city couldn't run without you folks. It's important that we take care of you. And I consider the building that you're in right now to be unsafe, to be dilapidated, and to frankly be depressing to go into because of lack of light, windows, operating space, and circulation. It is not an acceptable facility for a government function. And I say that because I think you all deserve a better place to do the work that you do, the work that we can't live without. And having said that, I think you got a pretty good idea where I'm going with this. So thank you for your consideration of my questions.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Ms. Klein.
You're muted.
I know, and you guys disappeared. I don't know what happened to my computer. Since we have a 25-year lease on the building where we're currently at, what happens to that if we move?
To the lease?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll just let that, actually I've already had the conversation with the folks at the county. I did get to meet the new county administrator, and Sharon, of course, was already there when the agreement went into place. So we did talk, like I stated, the intention is not to just like try to pack everything out. So we'll give ourselves some breathing space to come back and collect records boxes and those types of things. Surplus furniture, there's more than enough in the facility. And then we will let them know on the date that we are no longer going to be paying utilities and that we'll be out of there. So they're already aware that we're looking at a new space.
Okay.
We're paying $1 a year there, Ms. Klein.
I understand that, but we had a 25-year lease.
Okay. So that would be $25.
So we're just going to let the building sit there then?
That's not what she said.
It's their building.
And we're moving everybody, including Public Works, out.
Yes.
Anybody else? Mayor Pro Tem Hanson.
First of all, I just want to clarify, because I had the question asked to me. Everyone, or not everyone, but there are people who feel that or think that the lease is a 5-year lease. And I just want to clarify, it's a 1-year lease for $1, renewable at that point. The other thing is there's no room for council chambers. So, and I know that we're doing Zoom right now, but what option do we have? Can we use the building, the trailer behind the building that we're going to vacate?
Well, we would have to keep the utilities on there if we were going to do that. That would defeat the purpose. Actually, Ashley has suggested that we utilize the senior center.
That's not the most
well, I'd have to let Ashley tell you about her experience there. Evidently, there was a meeting held there.
When we were in between places, we did hold a couple of meetings there. It's large enough. The acoustics, of course, aren't the best. We all know we had a bit of an issue with that. But that was our only other option at this point.
I don't consider it a suitable option, though. It was, okay. I think it was difficult.
Well, then we'll have to keep working on it.
Themselves and just trying to fit around the
But the bottom line is that the current building could still be utilized at this particular point.
Okay.
And Mayor Smith, can I speak to the lease term?
Yes, please.
Thank you. In answer to Councilmember Hanson's question, it is not a 5-year lease. The total term can be extended to 5 years.
Right.
And at the direction of the city manager, we made it so that the tenant, meaning the city, does the election each year as to whether to continue under the lease. So if for whatever reason at year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, the city chose to not continue under the lease, the city has that option for it.
Right, and that was what I was trying to clarify, because I was called by an individual who said, well, I hear it's a 5-year lease. And I knew it wasn't. It was renewable after the first year. Correct?
Up to 4 years of terms.
Up to
that's
4
correct.
years, right.
4 additional years, correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I have a question.
Sir?
Go ahead and finish what you were going to say. I didn't mean to interrupt.
If there's no other discussion, I was calling for the vote by Ms. Coronado.
I was going to ask one more question of you and Ms. Coleman.
Yes.
Do each of you, both of you, feel that the problem of an inadequate space for council chambers is an insurmountable problem, or is that something that can be worked on and figured out in conjunction with this move?
Yeah, I don't think it's insurmountable.
Okay. How about you, Mr. Mayor?
No, I certainly don't. As I said, we have council chambers right now that could continue to be used if need be.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollack?
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino?
Nay.
Councilmember Higgins?
Aye.
Councilmember Johns?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hanson?
Aye.
Councilmember Klein?
Nay.
Mayor Smith?
Aye. Motion passes 5-2. Ms. Coleman, City Manager's report.
Yeah, just one thing. I hung up some very big posters around town today, just reminding people that we do have the Brownfield grant opportunity. That's EPA grant that Stantec is managing for the city, the county. I think there are 3 cities in the county that are partnering in that. We did get the approval from the beneficiary owners of Hillcrest to do that brownfield assessment, so that's moving forward. The county has started the assessment on their old high school building, and there's money left, so if someone has a piece of property and they feel that They need to know what the environmental condition is in order to be able to market it or redevelop it appropriately. Please reach out to me, Dan Coxworth, Dave Laney at Stantec, and we'll be happy to help you get started on the process of doing that environmental phase 1 assessment.
Great. Thank you.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Higgins, it's your turn.
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Those in favor of adjournment signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Please be safe.